Robby, what's on your radar?
Been looking forward to this. Location, location, location. That's what matters now on X, because Elon Musk has just rolled out a hugely important new feature, and it's confirming what some of us have suspected was the case for some time now. It turns out that many of the openly racist and anti-Semitic accounts on X that claim to be America first but are actually giving MAGA a bad name, well, they're not true America first at all. In fact, they're largely coming from Pakistan and other Muslim countries. And now we have the proof. A week ago, Fox News personality Katie Pavlich, friend of mine, posted this on X. Hey, Elon Musk, please make it mandatory that wherever an account is based, country, be featured in an account's public profile. Foreign bots are tearing America apart. Thank you. In response, Nikita Beer, head of product development at X, said, give me 72 hours. And now, X has delivered. Now, when you click on an X profile, there is an option to see more information about that account. It says account based in, and then lists the country or region. My account, for instance, says based in the United States because I was in the United States when I created it and have posted the vast majority of my X content while in the United States. But the same cannot be said for a great many accounts that purport to be America first. You know the ones I'm talking about. They often have that stupid Pepe the Frog character as their avatar. They promote Nick Fuentes and complain that the Jews have taken over the U.S. They whine about America at every turn while purporting to be America first. And they openly avow racist ideas, but because they have American flags in their bios, the mainstream media mistakes them for MAGA. Liberals point to these accounts and say, see, here's the evidence that Trump's base, the MAGA movement, is racist and is anti-Semitic to its core. Just look at these accounts. Well, guess what? Now we know. A substantial number of them are based in the Middle East, Pakistan in particular. They're not MAGA or America First. They're cosplaying as America First in order to discredit MAGA and make money. As conservative journalist Joel Pollack points out, this is an extensive foreign interference campaign intended to drive a wedge within the MAGA movement to the benefit of hostile foreign Islamic regimes. And conservative pundit Matt Walsh notes on X, tons of commentary on divisive American culture war issues is coming from foreigners whose opinions on international U.S. policy can be safely ignored. End quote. Even some liberals who've tracked harassment and hate online are now giving Elon massive props for unmasking all these foreign accounts. Jared Holt, a researcher on hate and extremism who's been very critical of Musk in the past, writes this on X. Honest to God, Elon Musk letting people see what country accounts are based in is one of the few good things he has done with this platform. Culture war clickbait is mass-produced by people overseas. It's always been that way. It's low-effort, hateful content, easy money. Now, to be clear, it's not just these faux right-wing pro-Fuentes Groyper accounts getting exposed. X accounts promoting the grievances of various ethnic groups have also been exposed as false. There's plenty of pro-Native American advocacy that's been exposed as originating from Bangladesh, for instance. And it's also the case that some X accounts purporting to be from dying or starving Palestinian children in Gaza actually originates in India or Qatar or North Africa. Now, that does not mean there are no dying children in Gaza, to be clear. It does mean that what we've seen and consumed on X is, in some cases, a form of manipulation. The question you might be asking yourself is, why? Why are people in Pakistan and India and Qatar and Bangladesh, Nigeria and elsewhere trying to sell us division and racism? Why are people who hate each other trying to convince us, Americans, that we also hate each other? Why are they trying to inflict upon us political discourse, inflict upon our political discourse a crude and inauthentic racial and religious hatred? Well, the answer is self-apparent. It's because they want America to fail. They want us to weaken. They want us to descend into infighting. They want us to start pointing fingers and scream in each other's faces. They want us to fall behind. And it's not just about culture. There's an organization, for instance, called Americans for Responsible Innovation that tries to sabotage U.S. tech developments by supporting regulations that would ensure that China, and not the U.S., wins the AI race. Guess what? That account is based in Germany. Maybe we should stop taking advice from foreign powers on what our tech policy should be. Just a thought. In any case, we must shut out the foreign racists and anti-Semites who pretend to be America first. They are not America first. They're not American. and they are not serving America's interests.
Well, in many ways, I think X to me got worse since Elon Musk took over, as far as like seeing a rise in some of the anti-Semitism, racism, and stuff that we've seen. Kudos to Elon Musk for following through with the request and making these accounts obvious. I mean, some of the wildest things to me was like an account called MAGA Nation. This is from the New York Times, with nearly 400,000 followers, was made in Eastern Europe. So it's not only like Muslim countries.
True. A lot of
it's all
Australia.
like, so why would European be like, that's just, again, has bad intentions.
A lot of Australia.
There are other accounts that are specifically tied to the MAGA base, like from Thailand and Nigeria, Bangladesh. So I'm just really, right, I'm blown away by this. I actually think that as somebody who really liked X and before that Twitter, and understand that journalists were using it for a variety of reasons, and it turned into just a dumpster fire. To me, a dumpster fire once we were not correcting false information and all that kind of stuff. But the fact that a lot of that information doesn't even represent and reflect America is a great thing.
Right.
I think when we see at the same time, which we're about to talk about, like Marjorie Taylor Greene being able to call out and step away from her own party, or the American public being able to have real dialogue and discourse, and we're also going to talk about Mamdani and Trump in one room. Maybe that's more like America than we see on social media, which sometimes is the worst of us. Maybe a lot of the things when I was arguing that no actual Democratic leaders were bashing the fact that Charlie Kirk, or propelling the fact that Charlie Kirk should have been killed. Maybe that's actually representative of the average American, that everybody understands good versus bad for the most part, and that these bots or some of these accounts online are just disgusting people that are trying to fuel this division when everyone knows that political violence is never the answer. And so to me, if this uncovers more of that, then I would be happy to see a social media that doesn't prove to me that we are just in this disgusting space of hatred that it seems to be.
Well, and that's the key thing. They're fomenting incivility and racial resentment, and because the accounts in many cases are identified as America for American, pro-Trump, pro-Western values, that has allowed, in my view, the mainstream media to portray parts of the MAGA movement as very racist and very anti-Semitic and all of those things. These accounts posting this originate, you're right, not just in the Middle East, but all over the globe. They're not even in America. They're doing it to undermine us, and for money, frankly, because of X's monetization policies. That kind of stuff gets you money. So you and I could argue until we're blue in the faces about old Twitter versus new Twitter. I like Elon coming in and changing the moderation policies. I didn't like the old moderation, but he did change the verification system so that there's less reliability when someone's verified that they are who they say they are. And I think this is a great next step to that, to be able to confirm where the accounts are based. You can't, this isn't gospel truth, because you can have a VPN, there are ways around where the origins are, but my eyes were open. I mean, I had really in recent weeks come to suspect a lot of this was being pushed to us from outside the country, but this was very, very informative, and we should take this to heart now when we have discussions about, what does MAGA really stand for? What does America First really stand for? What does anybody really stand for?
And I think it's even bigger than that.
Where is this coming from?
And I know we have to go, but I think it's bigger than that too. There's a lot of things that are just tearing division in communities that have nothing to do with MAGA, that were discussed and brought to the light that these are not even American accounts that have a stake in like what happens with people of color in this country and things like that, but arguing the other side of some weird point. And so a lot of that was exposed over the weekend, and I think that that's a good thing. Robby, what's on your radar?
Well, I'm not the only one who's happy about Elon Musk's decision to expose the fake foreign grifters cosplaying as America First accounts on X. Countless conservatives and even some liberals are pleased that the social media site is now revealing where accounts are based. We now know, for instance, that scores of social media personalities who purport to be America First, or MAGA, and spread racist and anti-Semitic hate are actually based in Pakistan, India, Nigeria. In other words, they're grifters. They aren't who they say they are at all. And they have no interest in making life better in America. That's not what they're doing. They don't live here. In fact, they've been making our lives worse. They've given liberal media reason to denounce conservatives as racists. Progressive pundits call out these accounts as racist and paint all Trump supporters as such. Meanwhile, these accounts are warping the priorities of some online conservative pundits who are clearly chasing their approval without understanding that these accounts do not represent real America First conservatives. This has given undue weight to right-wing figures who have largely international followers, Nick Fuentes, the anti-Semitic Groyper leader, for one. he is being boosted by foreigners, by people who do not have America's best interests at heart. I'm with Batya Sargon, who writes on X, exposing where these accounts are located was a stupendous act of patriotism. Thank you, Elon Musk. Jonah Goldberg, a Trump-critical voice on the right, he writes, this country of origin feature is real progress and I applaud it. Even Micah Irfan, a progressive pundit, said that the location feature is, quote, total Armageddon for the online right. I would qualify that. It's Armageddon for anyone who pursued clickbait, culture war, slop, and who did so for money. That's what I failed to mention, rather, in my radar from yesterday, which concentrated on the fact that so many of these accounts never had any interest in promoting America first. I should add that the incentive to do this kind of posting is not just anti-America, it's really more about making money. It's because of X's revenue sharing program, which, to be abundantly clear in full disclosure, I mostly support and in fact make use of myself. I get monthly checks from X when my tweets perform particularly well, and so do millions of other users. And this can be a good thing, as it encourages people to participate in X and gives them skin in the game, so to speak. But it can also incentivize low-quality posting, rewarding viral clickbait. Now, some of you probably remember the era of Upworthy. Remember that? The home of lazy, low-quality, psychologically manipulative content designed to go viral and make money for the site. 15 weird tricks for whatever. Number 2 will surprise you, etc. All that nonsense. On some level, this is precisely what the inauthentic foreign accounts are doing. Messing with your emotions in order to get you to retweet and reply instead of clicking through. Doesn't mean we should get rid of revenue sharing, but I do think Elon Musk might want to take a closer look at the algorithm and check what checks are in place to reward high-quality content instead of low-quality content. Just my own personal advice from one poster to another.
One poster to another.
Do you use the revenue sharing program? You're not very active on X.
I'm not, but I did.
Are you over on Blue Sky with your fellow liberals?
I've used it a lot on Instagram. That's where I've used it.
Oh yeah, you were taking a little Instagram video.
I was doing a little video.
Right.
I think it's more playful over there. I like to be joyful in my life. I know you said on Thanksgiving yesterday you're not going to go home and particularly engage political conversations.
Yeah. I can't manufacture joy until the cameras start rolling. You always hit me in my pre-show gloom.
I think you're really just like happiness inside of you. I think it's bubbling up, waiting to come out.
Yeah,
and every time you see me, it's like, wow, Lindsay's here.
I think that's how it goes.
So I think with this X thing, we're kind of on the same page because as many different changes that Elon Musk has made that perhaps I didn't like or have criticized, I think this one is really helpful, mostly because it opened my eyes to the idea that maybe we're not as bad as we have portrayed ourselves to be on social media, because there are people who, like you said, know it's going to get 1 million views if it's controversial. Mm-hmm. And then on the other hand, people who just want to fan the flames of division within our country. I think about recent examples when I was like how X specifically was demonstrating the worst of us. And I remember when Charlie Kirk was killed, no matter what you thought about the things that he said, political violence should be condemned and never celebrated. And so the fact that there were accounts on there celebrating, we were having multiple conversations about whether Democrats in leadership were celebrating his death. And I was arguing vehemently that they were not, and being very vocal about how they condemn political violence. But then there was a slew of people that we called credible because they have checks or 400,000 to millions of followers, that it's like, well, these Democrats follow these people and they're all saying it. And now we're finding out some of these accounts are not even based anywhere near America to care about an American issue, even though most people should have the same moral compass in that matter. It's still, you see the issue here. It's trying to make money and other things. So I'm happy that this is being unveiled in this way. I think we should look into it. I think most social medias are compelling people to post nonsense more than they're compelling. You're not. It's just like the news, right? When you see something bad on the news, people tune in for the most part. When you see a good news day, exactly. And when you see, oh my gosh, this man helped a man across the street, like nobody really turns that on and turns up the volume and keeps the channel there. Mm-hmm. So I think part of it is what we're consuming, but the other part is that the algorithm feeds into negativity. And so I'm happy to point out who that is. But then, yes, the next step to me would be to try to say, well, let's stop promoting stuff that's racist or condemning a group
right. And
or, you know, a
it's
whole list of
important
things.
to understand how the revenue sharing works. My understanding of what you get paid for is if someone else who's a verified user who has the check mark, you have to pay for that.
Right.
If other people who have the check mark engage with your content, including by just replying to it, you're getting paid. So this is important because the ugly ideas being expressed by these foreign accounts people could be responding to them with denunciation. People could be saying, this is wrong. I denounce this. This isn't part of my, and that's still getting them paid. So they don't need, it doesn't require affirmation or agreement. That's not what it is. It's just engagement with it. So they're trying to drive you wild and condemn it as these bad ideas should be condemned, but they're still getting paid for that. So that is, I think, a problem with the revenue sharing program, if I'm being honest.
I think part of
which
it
I, again,
still...
do as I say, not as I do. I participate in it, and I get
but
not that much. It's not that much money for, I don't know, maybe I don't do it aggressively enough. But
there's still a friction, though, with the fact that part of this would require like stifling what's considered negative or bad speech on X, the same platform that Elon Musk touted that he doesn't want to stop any speech, even if
I don't
he
want
gets into the land of
stifle it, but
stifle them from making money. Yes, because
but that's different. That's different than censoring. Like
well,
I'm not
making
saying
an equal playing field. Then, if the people who are from other countries with negative stuff to say can't make the same amount of money as the people from here that with negative stuff to say, or people from here for positive stuff to say. I mean, he's programming this algorithm to what works. People get riled up about negativity, and to shush these accounts are going against what he says.
This is a problem for media in general, that, as you said, negative stories are, for whatever reason, having to do with the human psychology, are more engaging. And this is true of media organizations, of local news companies. They choose things that happen are on the news. It's not another day where no one died crossing the street and everything was fine. That's not news. News is someone got killed crossing the street today. Now, we try to provide context of this is very rare that this happens. It is safe to cross. You look both ways before you cross the street, but there's not some epidemic of people dying this way or whatever it is.
Right.
So you get the impression of negativity, of pattern. That's how the human brain works, and that's how the news works. And it can work in a very dishonest way because it can distort things, as is happening on social media. But this is a problem just with media in general, of being tuned into things that are happening
Elon Musk
at
has
all.
some decisions to make as the antithesis of mainstream media, right?
Yeah, not fall prey to the same bad incentives.
Robby, what's on your radar?
Well, New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani is putting together a team, and one of the people on that team is Alex Vitale, a professor of sociology at Brooklyn College, and the author of a provocative little book called The End of Policing. That's right, the new mayor has picked to work on community safety issues, one of the leading intellectuals behind the Abolish the Police movement. Well, that's very interesting, of course, given that I was assured by many liberal friends that, well, Mamdani isn't actually serious about abolishing or defunding the police, and that when he tweeted over and over again that he wanted to do just that, he was joking, lying, paying no attention to what the mayor of New York said when he said what he said it 5 years ago. It's ancient history. Okay, surely when Mamdani said queer liberation means defund the police, he didn't mean defund the police, right? No, that's crazy talk. I think we should try something else. I think we should take what Mamdani said back then seriously. I think he really does have some very unpopular, frankly very dangerous ideas about policing, namely that his city, New York City, would be safer with fewer police, or perhaps fewer resources for the police, or maybe no police at all. And that is the ideology of Alex Vitale, who Mamdani has picked to consult him on community safety issues. In Vitale's book, he writes, quote, "The problem is not police training, police diversity, or police methods. The problem is the dramatic and unprecedented expansion and intensity of policing in the last 40 years, a fundamental shift in the role of police in society. The problem is policing itself." It's a pretty clear mission statement. The problem is not police training, diversity, or methods. Now, most people, even I think most progressives, well, they don't believe that policing is itself the problem, do they? They might have issues with the kinds of policing they see in their communities, police brutality, racial profiling, etc. But they don't think that abolishing the police is the answer. They think we need better and more competently trained police. Well, that's not how Vitale sees it, though. He literally thinks we can get by with a lot less policing. Now, in a negative review of Vitale's book for the liberal website Vox, Matt Iglesias wrote that Vitale fails to grapple with compelling evidence that more cops means less crime. Iglesias writes that, quote, "There's a substantial literature in economics and sociology arguing that more police on the beat equals less violent crime. One effort to quantify this precisely is a 2018 Review of Economics and Statistics article. It estimates, based on a big set of police and crime data from large and mid-sized cities between 1960 and 2010, that every $1 spent on extra police generates about $1.63 in social benefits, primarily by reducing murders. Iglesias continues that I found the book didn't contain an answer to the question about what a huge reduction in the number of police would mean for violent crime, end quote. Well, we know what would happen if we had fewer cops, many fewer cops on the streets, on the subway, watching convenience stores, keeping an eye on public parks, close at hand to answer distress calls when fights break out, or mentally ill people crash a fast food restaurant, or when gangs of teenagers consider a carjacking or shoplifting spree. We would have more of all those incidents of crime. Furthermore, when you have fewer police, detectives, the police solve fewer crimes. And this is very important, very key. When violent crimes go unsolved, it encourages further violence. The data on that is abundantly clear. You want to solve murders so you can prevent murders in the future. So does this sound like a good plan, the right agenda for a community to you? Is this what you want for your community? Is this what New Yorkers wanted for theirs? Mamdani swore, of course, that he had no intention of defunding the police, that we should ignore all those tweets he sent. Well, maybe we should have listened to the words that were coming out of his mouth. Maybe defund the police actually means defund the police, at least to the people who are now running New York City.
I know you couldn't wait to say this.
No, I'm very frustrated to have to say this.
About what I think people who were being more thoughtful about tactic were saying when they said defund the police. So I hear you. Vitale had some interesting ideas in his book that I think should be acknowledged. So he really was arguing for community safety and trying to really advocate for that. His book also argues that crimes like sex crimes, sex works, and drug crimes should not be criminalized. And so he was saying that people going to jail for those things as opposed to trying to receive some type of health evaluation, mental health evaluation. He believes that the government agencies and private companies should provide homes to homeless people as opposed to jailing them, like we also talked about when the National Guard came to D.C. So these are just some ideas that were in the overall book.
Right. He wants to decriminalize sex work. I'm fine with that.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
So drug legalization, I support that. I support those things.
I want to fully paint the picture of his ideas since you brought him up. So he also wants to recommend drug rehabilitation programs, and more than that, he wants to make sure that people are getting rehabilitated as opposed to jailed, right? I think that that's just a basic understanding of his book. What his book does not answer, and what I agree with, is how we deal with violent crimes, right? We cannot just not throw people in jail. Like, there's no, because he does argue the furthest and most extreme point that, maybe police should be completely lessened to a point of, absolved. And I don't know that anybody wants that, at least from the people that I talk to with a realistic mindset around this. But I think that your outrage about Vitale specifically is a bit overstated. I think if you understand what Mamdani is doing, he has 17 different advisory committees that he just brought on board that have a total of 400 different people. And so Vitale is one of 27 people on a committee that's going to look at community policing. And so his 10 ideas in the book that actually are good, like decriminalizing sex work, maybe is more effective than the one idea he has that says we should get rid of all police. Because there are 26 other people on that same committee that are going to be arguing their points. And that's why Mamdani is bringing a bunch of thought leaders and people that have worked in these communities to the table. Like I told you, a total of 400 people. So in no way is Vitale going to have more say-so than 399 others. And so I think you have to remember, as you find the story, because it was worth it to make your point about defunding the police, that he also found a myriad of other people that are going to be on a variety of committees that are going to help him come up with and solidify his plan as he walks into January, which I think is a solid thing to do, even when you include, just like MAGA does, the most extreme parts of the party and the most calm George Bush, Dick Cheney parts of the party. You still have to represent the Republican Party. So Mamdani is trying to hear all the voices, bring them all to the table, and talk about what the next steps could look like with a realistic conversation of a variety of minds. And I think that that's admirable.
Well, again, I would say the book is called, it's not called Legalize Sex Work, it's not called End the War on Drugs, it's called The End of Policing. So it's a very, and then it doesn't mince words in what he talks about. And as you acknowledge, what do we do with violent crime if that's really the goal being worked toward? I would rather not see this person on any sort of community safety board. If it was simply a task force for reclassifying drug-related infractions and it was him, then okay, fine, I have no problem with that. Again, libertarian, I don't want to police that kind of behavior at all, but the idea that, I mean, his book fails to acknowledge there are numerous psychological, sociological studies. The evidence is overwhelming that having more police on the streets, look, I'm not saying there are no downsides, right? We don't want racial profiling and we don't want, but more police on the streets does deter violent crime. And in particular, solving homicides, getting people who commit homicides off the streets disincentivizes additional crime.
But you have to balance all of Mamdani's choices recently. He also kept in Jessica Tisch as the NYPD police commissioner, so he's going to go forward with that. So if we're looking at Mamdani, we have to look at everything.
I'm glad she's going to try to stick it out.
Exactly. So therefore, we have to just give Mamdani an opportunity to bring these 400 people to the table, plus keep a police commissioner in and see what happens next. Robby, what's on your holiday radar?
Well, as I've been saying, happy Thanksgiving and rejoice because turkey prices are down this year versus last. As reported by the Washington Post, the average price of a Thanksgiving meal has fallen since the year prior. The average cost for a family of 10 is now $55.50 versus $60 per family in 2022, which was the costliest year on record. This is a good reminder that while the country's economic circumstances are not perfect, one can certainly argue that life is better under President Donald Trump than it was under Joe Biden, whose administration presided over runaway inflation that has come down, though not receded completely, since Trump took office. Of course, this good news is likely to fall on deaf ears of many Democrats whose frustration and blind fury toward Trump is all-consuming as ever. Equally annoying are those on the other side, the Trump true believers, who lash out at any and all criticism of the president, no matter how mild or well delivered. This Thanksgiving, I'm suggesting both of those types simply refrain from talking politics at all during your holiday celebration and dinner. Yes, every year around this time, we are treated to a barrage of mainstream media articles and complaints from young progressive lefties about how awful it is to talk to your older, more conservative relatives about politics. What if racist Uncle Steve says something that offends me? Oh no! You know that kind of journalism. You've probably seen plenty of examples. It's very, very tiresome. Of course, now it's more likely that Uncle Steve, or at least Aunt Karen, are the progressive Trump haters, and the younger kids, especially the boys, they're the Trump fans. But regardless of how your family breaks down, maybe it would be better for everyone if we just gave politics a one-day rest. After all, we were not meant to be this all-consumingly focused on politics all the time. Thanksgiving's a time to reflect on the origins of this American experiment. It's always worth keeping in mind that the founders of our great nation did not envision a powerful federal government in which all Americans would participate in some ceaseless battle for control and for say over how other people live their lives. Our American heritage is one of leaving other people alone to live their lives as they see fit and to foster harmony and joint cooperation when done voluntarily and when mutually economically productive. That is the tradition the Thanksgiving holiday reflects. Now, I've said this often on Rising, but in my view, it's just mine, the reason our politics has become so toxic is because the stakes are so much higher, which is completely contrary to what our founding fathers envisioned. They thought Congress would meet infrequently and that the executive branch would do very little. They wanted to mostly leave things up to the states. Today, the government is the president of the United States, who has vast powers that substantially impact the lives of all Americans. And so we have reason to be very, very involved in politics. If my side loses, your side will oppress mine, and vice versa. If Republicans are in control during an immigration crisis, it could mean federal troops deployed to blue cities. And if Democrats are in control during a health emergency, it might mean the feds closing schools and businesses indefinitely. We've lived through both these things. So people fight and they argue in very embittered fashion to not be out of power. It's tough, but that's the only antidote to this era of increased polarization. Shrink government and give the feds less power over our lives. Then we can go back to ignoring politics, not just on Thanksgiving, but for most of the year. Wouldn't that be great? I think so.
Bah humbug.
No, this is a positive vision for what America could look like. We could be less at each other's throats, Lindsay, you and I and everyone else, if we just left each other alone, if the government left us alone, if the government would stop harassing us and bossing us around, we could live in peace.
So let's talk about you and I, then let's back up to everybody in America. So, you and I get an opportunity.
Well, it's our job.
We get an opportunity to discuss ideas and debate topics every single day. People who go into their jobs and workplace, usually a lot of these topics are off limits if you'd like to keep your job and not get in an argument with your coworker.
Thanks for that, HR.
That disagrees. And so they're going to use the opportunity, particularly with you and I, to talk about this at the table. I'm not offended by it, but also everyone at home should discuss ideas. In real life and in real time, most recently in the last month, a variety of people have been affected by our government, specifically from people who were flying, whose flights just randomly got canceled because air traffic controllers weren't able to go to work, to people who signed up for health insurance like we had to do this week and saw their premiums are going to rise next year.
Oh, yeah,
to
I gotta
people
do that still.
Yeah, you need to get on top of it. But to people that are looking at the fact that they haven't received SNAP benefits until maybe the day of or day before Thanksgiving, and they still want to enjoy time with their family and buy groceries. So there's real factors that people can still be thankful for, the fact that they are together despite these circumstances, but real opportunity to share ideas, but also criticize what you might think is going wrong or right about the government. I don't think that needs to turn into an argument. And I do also, like you, despise those think pieces that you really need to shun everybody. I cannot control everybody in my family. I got some ridiculous characters across the board on both sides of the aisle. That said, I still welcome the dialogue because sometimes it's humorous, sometimes it's over the top, sometimes I just have to be an adult and ignore, like not engage if I'm that fired up. And so we need to know how to have dialogue because that's part of the problem about why it got so the tensions got so high in our country is because people couldn't even talk to each other. And I feel like we've passed that wave of not being able to talk. Maybe that was around President Trump's first presidency, and that's why Biden came in. People had Trump fatigue and just thought it was too over the top. And now here we are. The country decided that they would like this man to be president again. We're going to have to talk about it because we're here. And he won by more than a little bit. And so I think it's worth noting. Are you happy? If my family members come to the table, I'll say, are you happy? You happy with how things are going? You happy with these tariffs?
They're probably happy with the turkey prices.
The turkey prices, that's the only thing they're happy with. You happy with the gas prices? You happy for the flights that you can't get your money back on if they're now 4 hours delayed because President Trump wants to strip that rule and make airlines not pay you back, a rule that Biden put into to protect flying people and consumers. You know, a lot of things. Tell me, are you happy?
Well, and
we can discuss it.
That rule they'll raise the price of the flight to cover that lost economic, right? It's not. That's just kind of directing the market in a way that's not going to make people's lives better. They'll just raise the cost of the flight.
Either way, people can have a time to sit down, and a lot of people, if you're lucky enough, are off work, and you can talk about what's working and what's not, and how they feel about the president they voted for. I saw New York Times actually did a great job because they went to cities across the country and spoke to Trump voters. Some of them said, I still wouldn't change my vote, but no, I'm not happy. And here's the reasons why. You should be able to express yourself. Just like if you wanted Kamala to win and I held people's feet to the fire, tell me why. What exactly did
I
she
would like
say?
to know.
What exactly
Tell
did
us
she say
why. Why did you think that?
I'm asking. So that's what I'm saying. If people are so passionate, and these are conversations I had with my mom when I was like, no, Joe Biden can't go forward. And she was like, yes, he can.
Really?
And I'm going for it. And me and her were going back and forth. And she was like, what are the other options? The country will crumble. And I disagreed wholeheartedly. I think that we needed to figure out a better plan. And so those conversations should be had because then it makes people look internal and say, why am I just blindly supporting President Trump and these ideas that are making my everyday harder to afford? Why am I supporting somebody with a 39% approval rating? Or do I like what he's doing and have to say that these are things that I like? So I think that this is all good conversation.
I don't know if it's all good. I think it can be, well, certainly we want an engaged population. We're a democracy. People are voters. But I think it would be nice to be able to turn politics off a little bit more regularly. Take a break from it. Take a break from it having so much impact on our lives every now and then.
You can watch the game and talk politics
while
you're eating.
Instead, yeah. Watch the game and just talk about the game.
Just no politics whatsoever.
Yeah.